Okay, let's look at this trig equation. The general solution means all solutions, so we need to think about that. And let's look at this equation and think about how formulas might help us. So I notice right away that we have the cosine of 2x. So we have a number of formulas that go with the cosine of 2x. 1 minus 2 sine squared x. Also 2 cosine squared x minus 1. And also cosine squared x minus sine squared x. Well, we need to decide which one to use here. These are all worth memorizing, although they're all connected by the Pythagorean identity. Sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. So if you can't remember all of them, you can use that to help you. But let's go back to our problem. We have a cosine. Oh, I'm seeing a mistake here. We have a cosine of x in this problem. So we probably want to use the version of this that has a cosine in it. I think that's going to be the easiest one. So that's the one I'm going to pick. And now we can simplify 6 cosine squared x minus 3, I'm distributing, equals 1 plus 5 cosine x. And I am noticing that this is a quadratic equation where cosine is the variable. So I am going to set it equal to 0. If you think about an equation like this, 6a squared minus 5a minus 4 equals 0, and if you can solve that, then you can solve this other one, because you can just say, well, cosine of x is equal to a. So this is a quadratic equation, and you have a lot of methods to solve a quadratic equation. You could factorize and set each factor equal to 0. You could use the quadratic formula, which you know is the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And you need to identify a, b, and c. In this case, a would be 6, b would be -5, and c would be -4. Or you can complete the square, use other methods. In this case, let's use the quadratic formula. And so we know that cosine of x will equal the opposite of b, 5, plus or minus the square root of b squared, 25, minus 4 times 6 times -4, all over 2 times 6. I'm just going to simplify this. This is the square root of 25 plus 16 times 6, which is 96, all over 12. This is what cosine equals. So we continue, 5 plus or minus the square root of 121, which we know is 11. So this we could have factored. 5 plus or minus 11 over 12 is equal to the cosine of x. 5 plus 11 is 16 over 12, so we would get cosine of x is 16 over 12, which we know is 4/3, or the cosine of x is 5 minus 11, -6 over 12, which is -1/2. Oops. Well, we know that the cosine can never be greater than 1, so that part of this doesn't give us any solutions. But we do know the cosine could be -1/2, and that is actually one of our special angles. If we think about the unit circle, the cosine of equals negative a half in the second and third quadrants, and that would be 120 degrees and 240 degrees. And if we want the general solution, we would include all solutions, which means we would include any value that ends up at the same spot, or if you think about it on a graph, every 360, which is the period. And in this case, n is an integer, and that would include all of our solutions.